How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. I wanted to talk to you about something that just happened in the market here today, and I think it's really good for crypto holders. And I want to explain something because I just haven't had a chance to talk about this on the channel yet. But if you're part of the Patreon, underneath the video, there's a link to the Patreon. If you're part of that, you know kind of what I've been thinking recently. And I made a massive change in my own portfolio recently, which I want to talk to you about here today. If you guys don't mind, hitting the like button and subscribe button, I appreciate that. There's also a link down there to BlockFi to get an interest rate on your cryptocurrencies. You can see I have their shirt on right now. You can start getting an interest rate right down there and up to $250 bonus when you sign up. Also, check out that link down below to Patreon if you're interested in this, because I recently did some changes, which I'll talk to you about, but that way you can get information as soon as I post it. Plus, this is the first day of the month, which is the best day of the month to start on Patreon. So definitely check that out. So we have some huge earnings this week, and I've been talking about this a little bit here on the channel. The biggest earnings today was Google. So we have them announcing after hours, and they're up 6.5% right now. Now, I'll get to why this affects crypto here in a second and why I've done what I've done recently. But they announced Q4 earnings per share at $31 versus about $27 expected. So they beat by 11%, over 11%. And then they also beat on revenue by about 4.5%. The big news is also they authorized a 20-for-1 stock split. So this is going to make this $150, which, if you know about stocks, it doesn't really change how much money they're making or anything like that. But basically, it makes it more attractive to people that are trying to spend maybe $150 or $300 instead of spending $5,000 or $3,000 for a share. So instead of buying one share for $3,000, you can buy a share for $150, like I said. Now, this has done really well for a couple companies in the past, like Apple and Tesla. They blew up after their stock split. It really doesn't have any effect, again, on the fundamentals of the company or the earnings per share. It just gives you more shares and makes it more accessible to people that don't have fractional shares across the world. The big thing that I've done recently, again, well, I apologize for saying this, but we will get to cryptocurrencies here in a second. The big thing that I've done recently, just since yesterday morning, I put 1/3 of my portfolio in Google stock. So if you've been following along the channel, you know that I haven't been talking about stocks as much recently, but I made a big transition this week to focus in on some of the top companies in the world. And I only have 7 different equities, seven different stocks that aren't Bitcoin related or crypto related. So 7 non-crypto related stocks in my portfolio anymore. And Google, along with Tesla, account for 33% of my portfolio. Now, I would have loved to get in some more money before this happens, but I shifted my entire portfolio because I feel like I really need to focus on the winners. And especially when you're following crypto all day, you don't have enough time to follow everything that's happening in the stock market. Now, Alphabet, I feel like, is a flight to safety, kind of like people were thinking with Apple. And I felt like this is really got to be where the majority of my portfolio is, along with Tesla. Like I said, they killed earnings. They are at a 25 price to earnings ratio now if they go up to a $3,000 stock. Again, they'll split here in a little bit, but this was a great earnings. Now, again, that's why I say if you want to follow the Patreon, you can know right when I buy a significant position like this. But I say this is important for crypto too, because Bitcoin's correlation with the S&P 500 and NASDAQ has been very high recently. We, over the last few days, have seen the price of crypto go up and the price of stocks go up. Before that, we saw stocks dropping. We saw Bitcoin getting hit pretty hard. I think this is really good for stocks and for crypto because Google is a $1.8 trillion company. They're going to bring up the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, assuming they can hold on to their gains. And that's only going to be good for some of these riskier assets too. Google will continue to grow, whether the Fed tightens or not, but this will help, I think, bring up the rest of the riskier assets. In their earnings report, they showed a huge amount of growth in YouTube ads, and I'm a YouTube creator. This is something that's interesting to me. They brought in $8.6 billion worth in ads just in Q4, which is more than all of Netflix in Q4. So they are just part of their business is bigger than Netflix. So just something to consider there. They've also been growing quite consistently over the last 5 years or so. So I definitely check them out if you haven't looked already. I know it's easy to get excited by flashier objects or flashier stocks, but the fact is Google is a continuous grower at 20, 30, 40% a year. So that is an interesting thing that you should take a look at. Now, MSTR also announced earnings, and I skimmed this. I wasn't reading it as closely, but they are growing their operations slightly. They're not a huge growth company. They're basically just a holding company. That's why everyone has invested in them for Bitcoin. But I did think it was interesting, and we already knew this, but they are holding this annual conference for how different corporations can hold on to Bitcoin. And this is 100% virtual and free. So the company is getting a little bit stronger in terms of cash flows, and they are running this conference. I think it's something definitely to pay attention to. Now, how can you make money from this, right? How can you make money from Google earnings? Well, obviously, it's a little bit late to get in on Google for this pump, right? The earnings pump. I wasn't trying to make an earnings play. It just happened to work out that way. I would have been happy if it had fallen down because I could buy more, but I still think Google is a good long-term company. They're growing very quickly. They are large. They own a lot of different business segments. So that's one thing to consider. The other thing is, if Google, which is basically an advertising and tech company, if they did well, then Meta will probably do well. And Meta is the third largest stock in my portfolio. I did allocate more to them than any other company besides Alphabet and Tesla. I do have a couple other stocks, as you can see here, that I am paying attention to, but I would really pay attention to Meta. They announce in the next few days too, and I think they will do quite well too because they are another advertising company. Now, cryptocurrencies I think will do well too. Like I said in my video earlier today, I'm not going and trying to throw as much money in crypto right now as possible because honestly, cryptos have gone up a decent amount this week. So I'd been allocating a lot towards them last week and the week before when we had fallen down a lot, but now we're seeing a little bit of a pump. I wouldn't be surprised if we got a little bit of a drawdown, but what we really need to see, and this is very clear, you can see that really we need to break into the $40,000 range and break above that. If you look at this trend line from Will Clemente, you can see that we have been trending down. So if we can break this line, that's great. Also, you can see this range where we've seen resistance, and then we've also seen support over here. And now we're seeing some resistance here again. So this $40,000 to $42,000 range is huge. I think it will turn a lot of people from thinking that this is a bear market into a bull market again, and it will get people very excited. We can see too, Bitcoin's held up really well compared to some of the other cryptocurrencies over the last 30 days or so, but it's not pumping as much right now. I mean, Solana's up 12% on the day, Bitcoin's up 1%. So if you're thinking we're going back into a bull market, then you might want to pick up some of these cryptos that are a little bit more beaten down. Now, that's just my opinion. If you want to know all the different stocks in my portfolio and you want to know when I'm buying different cryptos and how much I'm buying and some different things I'm doing in the market, you can check out the link down below to the Patreon. Otherwise, you should definitely check out the link down below to BlockFi, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.